Father, we want to thank you for being part of something greater than ourselves, Lord, just to be a part of blessing our city and helping one another out. And so, Lord, tonight, again, we just pray that your purposes for what Port Richey was created for would be sought out and flow, Lord. And tonight, again, that our hearts would be pure for making decisions for one another. Lord, I thank you for the wisdom I see here and ask that would continue to go, Lord. Thank you for Mr. Dute, Lord God. Just continue, Lord, to just peaceful wisdom, Lord, around him and flowing, Lord. We do lift up the budget and thank you for the vision of the overlay, Father. We just pray that things would just come together and flow in that way that could be seen, understood, and be a blessing, Lord. Thank you for all the new staff and that they would just find their places and encouraging one another. And I particularly, Lord, just want to thank you for Linda and Lisa and the Meet Your Neighbor that's been in the city, Lord. I just appreciate that time together. We just thank you for the police cars and tonight. And again, we just pray for our first responders, police and fire department. Lord, watch over them, protect their families, keep them safe, Lord God. Let us pray on our watch in this hour. Bless this meeting tonight in Jesus' name.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Scott Tremblay.
Here.
Vice Mayor William Dittmer.
Here.
Councilwoman Jenny Sorrell.
Here.
Councilman Todd McClary.
Here.
Councilman Tom Kinsella.
Here.
City Attorney James Matthew.
Here.
City Manager John Dute.
Here.
Looking for a motion to approve council minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This time we're going to open up comments to the general public. The first up, I'd like to welcome Pat Rogers.
Pat Rogers, 4838 Sunset Boulevard. I have a question. There have been 2 sailboats anchored in the river between the bridge and Whiskey River on the south side. And one of them's pretty good size, the other one's not very big. But I was wondering if that's legal, illegal. Does anybody even care about it? But I've never seen any boats anchored there before, and the one's been there a couple weeks. I'm not sure how long the other one's been there. Just curious.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. We'll look into that. There are some people that are signed up for other commentary. I see that there's Mr. Mueller and Mr. Lord are signed up for the section for comments after the city management. I didn't know if you guys want to speak now or at that time. Okay. So we're going to move on then past. Would anyone else like to speak that's not signed up? Seeing no hands, we're going to move on to our comments from our city manager, and I'd like to invite Mr. Dute to speak at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ongoing projects, we're still, for the dredging of canals 26A and 1, we are still in the 45-day public comment period that Treasury required. I believe that ends on the 26th of June. I spoke with the Restore Act representative this morning. She expects once that is completed, we'll move the paperwork along, and she wouldn't give me a date on when she thought we might have an answer from Treasury, but that's upcoming. We reached out to 4 federally licensed fireworks contractors. I'm sorry, 3 federally licensed fireworks contractors. The first one said they were not available for anything on or around the 4th of July. The second one refused to even respond. The third one said they're overbooked. It'll take them 30 days just to get us an answer. And if and when they can get us an answer, their prices have gone up 35% since last year, leading to the likely conclusion that at least for the 4th of July, fireworks are not going to be likely for the city of Port Richey. On Old Post, we did get the trash cans in place as requested. Sal and I went out and looked at them. They look lovely. They're ready for business. Staffing updates, we've posted the CRA grant manager position and the HR specialist position. We had the last interview for that today and anticipate making a decision this evening or tomorrow about who our candidate will be for that. That one's drug out a little longer. Our first choice had already taken another position by the time we talked to her, so it's taken a little longer, but I think we've got it narrowed down now. So looking forward to that person being on board. I went out with Sal this morning and reviewed progress on city parks, doing some pre-planning for the DEP grant phase 4. We've finished up and submitted the final report on phase 3. That's a grant that started in 2018, and the city had some reimbursement opportunity for improvements in Waterfront Park, and a number of those improvements were made. We're now awaiting a in-person inspection, so DEP will come out and take a look at the park, confirm that we did what we said we were going to do. If they're satisfied with the work there, we're looking at as much as $29,000 in reimbursement for expenses there. So the next phase of that grant, we're in the pre-planning for that. The application is due in October, and so we'll look at more park activities. It doesn't have to be restricted to waterfront, so as you have ideas about what you would like your parks to look like, we can add those to the list. Just so everybody is aware, I got the requirements for Waterfront Park. Waterfront Park is a little different than our other city parks. DEP has significant control over what happens there. Anything that we do other than, and I want to read this, anything that is any use of the park by non-governmental persons other than in such person's capacity as a member of the general public. That's bureaucratic speak for if you want to have an event. So if you want to have an event at Waterfront Park, DEP requires 60 days to review the plan. So probably 90 days before an event, we should be looking at paperwork and what is the plan, what you want to do. They're very specific about anything that includes vendors, the sale of anything that would generate tax or profit, anything that is other than going out for a picnic, walking on the path, playing on the playground. So anything that looks like an event, DEP wants 60 days to review the plan, and the city ought to have another 30 days or so to take a look at it. But anyways, got that information today. Just want to make everybody aware of the requirements that we have for activities, events in Waterfront Park. Still working on departmental budgets. Rachel's been hammering away at that, so I think by next council meeting we'll probably be ready to start having your involvement in that process. So take a look at when we want to have a budget meeting in our next city council meeting. CRA audit, we're still answering the last 3 or 4 questions that we received about a week ago. This has required going back page by page through city council and CRA meeting minutes, looking for anything that might relate to CRA and CRA projects. So appreciate Mr. Matthew and Rachel's time and efforts on that. Ashley has been going through years of city council minutes to find answers for the state auditor. Met with Cindy Boyd this morning. She's the manager at Suncoast Gateway Trailer Park right across the street. She'd been in to talk to PD and fire, doing some pre-planning so that if and when there's an emergency, particularly high water, that we're not trying to plan in the middle of the night when it's raining and the water's coming up. So I really appreciate her coming in and spending time with the chiefs and doing some pre-planning. She and I had 10 minutes or so to get to know each other a little bit, and we'll be working together. Finally, I sat in with the mayor on a meeting this afternoon with MPO to discuss the underpass under US 19 and that project. Covered a lot of territory in that. The feasibility study is done. The net result of that study is that in terms of construction, it's all feasible. In terms of what's private property, what's public property, what's right of way, and how many dollars and where do those dollars come from, may or may not be feasible. The state made it clear that if it was just pedestrians and bicycles, there's probably 100% financing available, and the price tag's about $3 million. If golf carts or other motorized vehicles are included in the plan, the price jumps up to $6 million, and the feds will not cover a dime of that. So there was a lot of discussion about who pays what and how much, and where does the funding come from. So more meetings to come, but Newport, Port Richey, county, state, we're all involved in that meeting. The county commissioners or representatives are involved. Sounds from the meeting like the county has a strong interest in the project. I think that, in my opinion, it looks like the two municipalities are wrestling with who else pays and how much. So funding and where that funding comes from will be a challenge. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. I stand for your questions.
And before we go any further, there were a couple different documents that were given, and I did want to know if I can get a motion to move those in, if you guys want to view those.
Motion to move them into minutes.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is distribute those so you guys can review and see what happened or what was talked about, the talking points.
The document with the picture on it is the talking points from today's meeting. The second page comes out of the transportation improvement plan that shows that particular project on the priority list for the county.
So it's 7th on the priority list?
Yes, sir.
With priority number 1 being fiscal year 2025?
Yes, sir.
I won't hold my breath.
So I think that one of the things in that meeting that they were trying to gauge is what the interest of the city was and how interested we were in pursuing this project. Obviously, that's something, there weren't any really no comments made, but that's really something that needs to be brought to council to have a discussion. But something that probably needs a little bit of time for the community to be able to touch base with us and some of our constituents to see, where everyone's at with that as well. With that, were there any questions, not just about this in general, but about any of the other reports, or any questions from Mr. Duke? Okay. At this time, I'm going to close out comments from our city manager. There were 2 people that signed up in this particular category. The first was Mr. Dave Mueller. Welcome.
Good, thank you.
Okay. The second was Pastor Lord.
I thought I just signed up general comments, but.
You're welcome to have your
Okay.
3 minutes here instead of there if you'd like.
Okay, all right, thank you. Apologize if I signed up in the wrong place. No, I just wanted to remind us that September 25th is coming up for Cure Fest, and of course, we network with code enforcement and of course with senior nutrition in just, I'd say, uniting the faith-based people and how they can come out and bless the community. So we've done that for years, and that's going to be September 25th. And just want to encourage you again, July 21st is when we'll be packing our backpacks. We've chosen to buy at least 150. I just want to thank Eric over at Gildog as we met Meet Your Neighbor the other night. I talked with him, and he's well pleased to help buy backpacks as one of them for Port Richey. So that'll be one of them helping. They're $250 a piece for those backpacks. And of course, when we do an event like this, we charge absolutely no money for the backpack giveaway. And I don't know, sometime I smile at what God does, but when I was sharing the backpack giveaway, Daniel Bernard from Somebody Cares has joined together with some Christian butchers and has distributed food around and bought, well, he bought a $2,000 worth for us to give out in the neighborhood here out at Moon Lake. And then he said, Leonard, for your backpack giveaway, I've got some quail. They're $17 a pound, but he gave us almost 400 pound we picked up the other day. So we hope to have somebody come out and cook those. So you can't get much better than that. So this is how the Lord's providing. And that will be July 24th, but the 21st we'll be stuffing them at our fellowship hall. We have a great time with pizza and song, and there we can pray over and the blessing. So those are the two things coming up that we're looking forward to blessing the city with, is getting our children back, and then hopefully if there's some loose ends in the city that we can, serve and help code enforcement or something, bring some things up if it's painting or trimming or things like that. So let us know if we can help. Listen, I appreciate the counsel, the wisdom y'all are giving us here for the city and leading us, and Lord bless you and thank you, okay? Thanks,
Thank
Mayor,
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Pastor Ward. That's all that's signed up. Would anyone else like to speak? Come on up, please state your name and your address,
My
please.
name's Frank Batari, 5118 Bems Court, Port Richey, Florida. I was here 2 weeks ago. I was here last week, nobody was here. I was here 2 weeks ago. I asked you about the dogs, homeless people having dogs. I'd like to know if you've done any research on it. You said you'll check into it. Have you?
Those are issues that you generally would take up outside of a
They say
council
to
meeting.
call these ASPCA and this, that, and everything. How many times I called them up, I got nothing done. I told them about cats running around in neighborhoods. I got papers right here. I just took my dog, 3 of them, to get their shots last Thursday. Excuse me. That's just 3 dogs. It cost me over $375, and that's because they didn't need a rabies shot, which would have been another $100 a piece. So that would have been about over $600-700. So just try to understand what I'm trying to tell you here. You got homeless people that basically don't have nothing. I'm sad to see, hear, and all that other stuff. But you know what? You got innocent creatures dragged on a leash 24/7. And look at the temperature outside, and it's only going to get hotter. They're on the blacktop. They have sensors on their paws. They've been our buddies over 100,000 years ago. I do a lot of reading and research. I'm kind of tired of seeing what does not happen. I think I'm sure something should be done about this. They have no tags, no license, no vets. These dogs could be sick, suffering, and dying. You understand what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to be rude to you in any way, but you know what? It's just something that bothers me. This is a life. And I'm just tired of morons and people in general that don't really give a damn about much. That's my straight out opinion. I'm tired of it. And like I said, I got 3 more dogs to bring to the vets, and their appointments are for the 28th of June. One was tested positive for heartworm, so that's going to cost me, so I'll be over $1,000. You understand what I'm trying to get at here? You got people out there that can't bring their dogs to the vet, let alone get any kind of shots. And I got tick cards right here. I'd like to show them to you that I got for all my dogs to have their license, their tags, and all that, and all their shots. People out on the street don't get none of these. You get it? Like I said, dogs were with us human beings over 100,000 years ago. Here's another little fact I'll throw at you, as I do a lot of research. Approximately 64% of children, this is children 12 and under, that are homeless, drink alcohol. Put that in your head a little bit. And this is just me. If you imagine the adults, or whatever they are, that are kind of guiding or watching these children, what their numbers might be. And I told you last time, it's in the 80% and above area that homeless people mentally are in 100%. I'm trying to say that in a proper way. So you have innocent creatures being dragged around the streets with them, and I really don't like it.
Thank you. I appreciate your time here today.
Anything going to be done about this?
This is a government meeting to discuss agenda
Well,
items.
this is
so-
government property. They're walking on government property, state property. These are lives. Straight and simple.
Thank you for your time.
I'll ask you again, is anything going to be done about this? excuse me, guys, not being rude to you or anything like that, but you know what? They're supposed to have their license, the dogs. So does anybody pick the dogs up or stop the guys that have these dogs sitting in the parks with their tongue hanging out of their mouth, dying for food or water or anything? People, animals, we've been together for years. Humans is what kills everything, not dogs, not animals, not other creatures. The dumbest thing on this planet, you know what it is? You're looking at it. Human beings. We killed and destroyed just about everything out there. 110 years, I think it is. We've destroyed over 90% of life on this planet already. I'd like something to be done about these poor innocent creatures that are dying on the streets and suffering. I would like something to be done about it.
Thank you, I appreciate your time.
Have a nice day, right?
Yes, sir.
Really sad. You want to see these papers to show you my bills, so what I said was true?
They weren't accepted into evidence, sir.
Evidence. I'm just saying what I paid for my dogs, how it cost me to take care of them.
Sir, nobody motioned to bring those in, so we can't review
I
them.
just thought I'd ask.
No, I understand, there's a procedure though, sir, I'm sorry.
I guess I'll come back next week, right, and just do the same thing all over again?
You're welcome to have your 3 minutes every 2 weeks.
I will.
Yes, sir.
This time I'll bring some of my friends with me. They work where these guys work, a little above that too. Who I was out to dinner with, retired from the FBI.
Thank you,
I'll
sir.
ask him to come here with me. Maybe you'll listen a little further. It's about lives I'm talking about, lives that are suffering.
The next item that we're looking at are comments from boards and committees. Linda Rodriguez, welcome, come on up.
Hi. The CAC, we have two requests. The first is, I think I've mentioned before how different cities have different, like, mascots. Dunedin has the dolphin, Weeki Wachee has the manatees, and we've been talking about the pelican, the brown pelican. We would kind of like, we would like to request that the pelican be an official mascot of Port Richey. That's the first thing from the CAC. The next thing is, we've been talking, and it's been on our agenda, the celebration for 100 years of Port Richey, which is coming up in 4.5 years, which seems like a really long way away. But there's a lot of preparation and planning to be done for that. And obviously, the CAC is not equipped to do that alone, but we certainly want to be part of that. So we were wondering if we could start a committee, a subcommittee, meetings with this, work on that celebration starting shortly. Maybe meet every quarter or something like that, just to get the ball rolling, so we can start moving on that. Obviously, budget and dates and when and what and who, and so we would like to request that that be initiated and started.
We have a committee for historical committee, don't we?
It's kind
do
of
have-
inactive.
There is a historical committee, and there's only like 2 or 3 people on it, and I don't think they've met.
Because
Yeah, there's
They
one.
talk. Angel and Lexi Hurst is also, I think those are the only 2 members, if I'm not mistaken.
because
So,
you may want to beef that committee up and see if you can work with them, because that would be the committee, if you're talking about a 100-year celebration, that we would want to engage, I would think.
yes, absolutely, we want that part of it, history and so
Correct.
on and so forth, absolutely, 100%. So I just wanted to throw that out there and see if we can get that rolling.
And so you're asking whether or not we can have the official mascot as a pelican?
Correct, yes, sir.
Any comment from the board or from the council?
I know the conversation was going around quite a bit. I guess my question is, and I don't have an objection to a mascot, you know, how did we come upon the pelican? I know it was kind of informally asked last time I talked, you know, I think a mascot's a great idea. It's part of a marketing plan for the city. Just are we all, I don't think this council, or at least I personally, don't want to pick the mascot, pick the pelican as the mascot, and then half the city says, I hate the pelican because it does X, Y, Z. So, you know, I just look for some unity on how we got to that point.
as a committee, we batted around many different ideas, and, all, the dolphins, the manatees, and all that's all within a very close proximity. We do have a lot of pelicans. We were out cleaning up the park, and there was 100 of them out
There's
there,
tons
diving
of pelicans
and
around
having a
here,
blast.
not arguing that part, so.
So we just felt, since we're waterfront, we wanted a waterfront bird or a waterfront presence.
Could you take that to, like you did with Victoria River Landing, put it out on your city
Sure we
Facebook,
can,
and then-
absolutely.
And then at the meetings, have people, so this way everybody feels like they're included in that.
Sure, absolutely, we could do that. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, no problem.
That's a good idea.
Okay, yeah, we'll do that.
And I'd recommend you put it on the agenda.
Put it on the, what
You're
upcoming?
ready to vote on it.
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay,
Yep,
I don't want to
Yeah.
come back here, 3 months from now and I say, put it on.
correct.
So we could authorize CAC to move forward and let them find us a mascot.
yeah, we'll do a poll like we did for the naming of Cody River Landing. So we can do a poll on Facebook and do that. Absolutely, that's not a problem at all. It's a good idea.
We don't need a motion or anything for that, no, just direction, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We'll do that. Okay? Thank you.
And I believe that's all that we have for comments from boards and committees. At this time, it's going to be comments from myself and council. I wanted to open up with some comments. The first was, I spoke again to the MPO director. He contacted me on, I guess it would have been Friday, and I had a long conversation with him. He said that there were some disgruntled board members within the MPO that he felt that we should have been more involved in the past. Not he, but I guess. So they put that as an item on for the June 10th meeting at 10 o'clock, which is over at the Government Center. I'm scheduled to be in court at that exact same time, which is actually right next door to where their meeting is being held. So what I've done yesterday and today to prepare for the 10th is ask the court to move my cases from 10 o'clock to 9 o'clock, so hopefully I can complete those and get over to the meeting. But as a contingency plan, as I generally do on an MPO meeting, if I have scheduling conflicts, I contacted Vice Mayor Dittmer just because I wanted someone there from the city if I'm a few minutes late to be able to attend the whole meeting. And I asked him, what his schedule looked like. But I also wanted to bring it up before council and kind of pass it over, if you don't mind, Dittmer, for any comment and whether or not you're able to attend.
As of right now, I'm still not sure if I'm going to be able to attend. Things have to change. But what I do want to talk to, and I think we should discuss as a council, is the whole MPO and as a whole. I feel, and this maybe is more of a personal feeling, that the county, if they spend as much time trying to help us do things as they do looking for things to pick on, we'd be a lot further along. And I feel that this is another reason to we have Jack Mariano who's continued tried to put this city in a bad light, and he sits on that council, and everybody knows that if the city ever folded, it goes to Jack Mariano under his control. And I think we're put in this position. There's nothing on that MPO. I've attended the meetings in person, and I attended them online. And anything that happens to our city has to come to our city. And I think what the mayor was saying at the last meeting about the MPO is he feels a little uncomfortable voting for something for Zephyr Hills when we really know anything about what's happening for Zephyr Hills. And I think we should also vote as a community, as a group, as a council, anything involved with our city, not just the one person who happens to be attending a meeting. Mm-hmm. So I think we should look at this whole thing and decide whether we want to even participate in the MPO, because from what I understand, and I've looked at, I don't think we've ever got anything from the MPO. This is just more of a rubber stamp when the county wants to do something. They want all the cities to say yes. And I feel that that's all this is at this point. So I would like to maybe even put it on an agenda to discuss that we review anything to do with it and vote on it as a council, and then that will be presented by whoever the representation is at the time.
And I wanted to add to Mr. Dittmer, or Vice Mayor Dittmer, a couple things. One of the things that's interesting about the MPO was originally set up by the governor, and it was statewide, and it was broken up into multiple areas. And what happened is there were rules that set up the original MPO, and then what happened is Pasco adopted those and then had their own bylaws. And what's interesting in the way that it's set up is it says that, in essence, government agencies should meet, and it should be elected officials, plural. And I would suggest that the reason it says elected officials is because most governments operate like we do, where we have multiple elected officials that make decisions. And the way the Pasco bylaws are set up, they don't have elected officials from each city. It's just one person. So, you know, the way that it's set up puts our form of government into a precarious position. You know, the question is whether or not we want to stay in the MPO and continue to participate, and if we are, how we're going to fix it so we can function as a cohesive group, as a council, like we should be functioning for all decisions as it involves the city, and not have one of us out there making decisions that the other four may not agree to. So those are, I think, the way I see it, the two different ways it can go. And I wanted to open, with that additional information, some discussion amongst council to see, because obviously we can't have it on an agenda item before the 10th. So I wanted everyone to weigh in. So I plan on getting there, even if I'm a couple minutes late, to address these issues. But I wanted everyone to weigh in so I know where we are at as a group.
So a question I have is, how are the other cities, how are they functioning with this? What's their role, their involvement?
Same, the meetings that I've attended, generally it's the mayor from each city, okay? And I'm presuming that a lot of their charters are set up probably similar to ours. So, you know, I don't know internally whether or not they get everything in advance, go through it, see what items there are, and then put it on agendas, talk about it, and then come vote, or if the mayor just shows up and makes unilateral decisions for those respective cities. I don't know internally how they handle it, but generally, as a rule of thumb, you have the 5 county commissioners and then the mayor from each city, comprised of the board members.
And who's the director?
Carl Mayeska, who's been tasked with that. I think it's a position within the county. And he's the one I've been talking to, who's been giving me the information to pass on to the council here.
I personally like the idea of, you know, getting the agenda ahead of time and bringing it to council so we can all discuss it and then speak logically to, or have the representative, be it city manager or elected official or whomever, speak logically and with council's full backing to whatever decision. Granted, a lot of the decisions don't really have anything to do with this city, so, you know, council's rendering of that would be fairly moot, but they meet once a month, if I recall correctly, for the MPO. I mean, is it feasible that they get the agenda? I mean, the agenda is once a month. They could issue it in advance of a council
They get it
meeting
a
for us.
month in advance.
Yeah, so, I mean, we can just bring whatever agenda items to our council meeting, the previous council meeting to the MPO meeting, vote them through, and then that's the official vote. I'd hate to see the city back out of the MPO. Granted, I agree we don't get a whole lot out of it, but it's still representation to the county. And there's some benefit to that. You know, there's nothing to say that Jack Mariano is going to be there forever, or anything of that nature. So to pull out now, meaning, you know, the 10th of June or whatever, may be a little bit short-sighted to that effect, looking down the road years ahead from now. Because Jack Mariano may become senator or whatever, or may retire, or whatever the case may be, and you may get a different representation, and that may be a different benefit by having that voice.
And And just to clarify a couple things, one of the things that if you look in the bylaws and the rules, because I started to look at some of these issues, is it's very clear that it has to be an elected official. So the idea of sending city management there is shot down just by the way that
We can't elect him to go?
we cannot.
Okay.
So that was one of the issues that I wanted as a point of clarification. The other issue is that the procedure, I would agree, would be that that the packet would go from the MPO to Mr. Dude. He would vet it for any issues that may impact our city and then put it before us. And then one of us would go, which by bylaws it's supposed to be me, but if I can't attend,
Then,
it can be any
yeah,
elected official.
Yeah, that's
So,
an easy part.
right. So that's certainly another way to go. But when we look at the MPO, anytime there's an issue that involves the city, and I think this is what Vice Mayor was saying, for example, the underpass that we're talking about, they have to engage us anyways. And just nature of the beast, it's going to come before the council, it's noticed. And we have a lot more notice when we control our meetings, when it's going on. We have our documents, we get it out to the public, and it's a lot easier to maintain rather than getting documents from them, trying to get it onto an agenda item. You know, we're limited on time if we go through the MPO. Also, I think we're at a disadvantage because of the way it's set up. If we're talking about, for example, the cart path, you may have people from Zephyr Hills or Dade City or whoever else voting on those issues at the MPO. And I think it's a lot better if it involves the city, if it's just us.
To that same extent, though, I'll counter, if Zephyr Hills doesn't have any problem voting on our stuff, we should have no problem voting on their stuff, and you have that give and take as well.
Sure, but I don't see how it benefits our citizens or our constituents to vote on a road in Dade City or Zephyr Hills. And I guess that's my point, is just the way that it's set up, I don't know how it really benefits our citizens, other than it gives them a voice, but the voice that it gives them is one that we would have anyway. So I think that's the point that the Vice Mayor was trying to
That was exactly the point. It all has to come through us regardless. And once again, I think this is more of a political thing. I think this is one of those little threads that keeps getting pulled at to put the city in a bad light. And that's probably just my personal view, but I've seen it over and over in different things. And when we have a chance to do things like Nix Park, we discussed Nix Park and Nix Park's boat ramp, and they told us that they were in to participate and help funding us do that park. Well, this has gone on and on and on, and Mr. Dudes contacted them over and over and over, and things aren't happening. So one of the items I was going to discuss is let's go back to talking about charging a fee, because that's when they jumped in when they heard that we were going to start charging a fee for the ramp, because they're all county people who use that ramp. Most of our citizens do not use that ramp. It's mostly people from the county. So I don't think they're doing us any favors, and I don't think this MPO has done us any favors. So it wouldn't hurt my feelings if we were not involved, but I will do absolutely whatever the council decides. But I think that anything that involves our city has to come to our city. And sitting there, I've had to sit there and I'm voting on an item for a city that half of their citizens may say, we don't even want this.
And I agree, I don't believe it's the greatest system in and of itself. I'm not arguing, the overall setup, and there probably could be better ways to do it. Kind of dealing with what we have, though, I think it would be a detriment to lose the representation overall. However much benefit we do have from the representation. Yeah.
Because anything that involves our city has to come back to this council anyway.
But to the same extent, if there's no voice there at all, or no representation there at all, is anything ever going to? Not that a whole lot has come to the city, so I see your counterpoint.
Right, that's the issue. What's the benefit?
What is the benefit to the city and to our citizens being the MPO?
And the counterpoint is the downside seems to be honest with you, a lot worse than what the upside would be. And that's one of the, just on a balancing act, one of the things that I think that he was looking at.
Is there any other cities not involved? Of note?
There, but I don't think they were always the mayor. When I've been there, they've had other people sitting
Yeah.
in for the mayor times too.
And there's two council of people that haven't really spoken a lot. Councilwoman Sarles,
Well,
or anything you'd
I
like to?
truly believe we should participate. And the reason being, we're trying to move the city in a new direction, and I think we're doing quite a job. We're active again. And everything we're doing is positive. We're getting recognition that we haven't received in a long time. And I say if we end up deciding to boycott, sit out this NPO, it's just going to reflect back to, there it is. Port Richey is back to the old game they played before. We need a better image, we need a newer image, and I think our participation, even if it means just sitting there, but still be involved to show the county commissioners we are involved. We'll take it serious. I believe we should participate.
And to that point, I agree wholeheartedly, 100% that we should be involved. As we are with any project that has pretty much anything to do with the city. And I think we will be involved and engaged. Obviously, for example, the project that we're talking about is the, when they're talking about the golf cart and the trail and the underpass, are things that we're going to be probably more involved than pretty much any other city, other than maybe Newport Richey. But we're going to be one of the central focal points. So, you know, I think we should be involved, but I think we are involved, and I don't think that's going to change. The issue is whether or not, you know, we sit on the board, which has some disadvantages in terms of timing and preparation and just the way that it's set up. And you're right, we can just sit there and not vote or participate, but I don't know how fruitful that would be either. And to do it and to do it right, to be honest with you, I think we would have to have a quorum there. There would have to be at least 3 of us, and we would have to be in the majority in terms of our one vote. And that's the only way that I could see it working, the way that our charter is set up and the way that it's supposed to be set up within the city.
Well, if the agenda is issued a month ahead of time,
It's not,
Oh.
5 to 7 days. 5 to 7 days.
5 to 7 days is all they give us?
It's every other month. It's 6 times a year. But sometimes, I think I was told it would be at least a month out, but that's not been the practice either.
Yeah, I
so.
mean, if they can keep with their 1 month out, if they're every other month on meeting, and they can keep to a 1 month agenda issuance, I see no reason, you know, why we couldn't, within our current structure, vote on the pertinent items, or it may even be a vote to a no vote, you know, as part of that, and then have a representative, you, him, me, whomever, you know, just vote, basically vote the sheet that
Sure.
is given to us. But, you know, they have to, if they are really, to me, if they are really interested in having Port Richey as part of the MPO, as part of a Pasco County resident,
But I don't think they are. That's the point, I think that.
well, then it shows, but if we give them the alternative, if you give us a month agenda item, and they can't even manage to put an agenda out a month ahead of time to accommodate one of their residents, then it shows right away that they're not interested in Port Richey, and then,
Well, that's what they've already shown us. Twice I've been on the Zoom calls because the mayor couldn't do it, so I came to City Hall to be involved. They never turned us on, our mic or anything, acknowledged our presence in the meeting. I got with Mr. Doot, we sent them a note and said, hey, you got, or Sal, and we sent them a note, said, we were there, you didn't even turn on our mic, you never acknowledged us, and they gave us all kinds of that won't happen again until the next meeting, and the exact same thing happened again. They just completely ignored us as if we weren't there. So maybe that's why I was a little upset about the whole thing, is that
don't bear a grudge.
No, you take everybody here. You know, you got to go to work. You got to do your stuff. You
Yeah,
take the
I
time
understand.
off to go
I
do that,
understand.
and then they leave you sitting
No,
in a
I
chair.
agree. I understand.
It just showed they didn't really care.
To me, giving them that ultimatum, all right, within our form of government, if you respect us as a citizen of Pasco County, you know, you should be able to adjust your agenda so we can vote confidently within our system of government and give you the representation that you're looking for. If you can't even accommodate that request, then we can't be part of your gaming.
I agree 100% that paid attention
Yeah.
to, just doesn't apply.
And that basically puts it on them. If they really want us and they want to be part of us, then to me, that's a fairly simple accommodation if they're meeting once every other month.
But
It has been my experience in the past with the MPO, because I was doing that at one time with a past mayor. We get invited to the party and then they ignore us. I don't think we should go. I mean, they really do. They invite us and then they don't work with us. They don't get us the information that we need. They don't even acknowledge that we're even there. Why go? I mean, you know, and they have to bring it to us because we're a city and we're the representation of our residents of this city when it involves us. So then when we get invited to the party, they're going to pay attention. So I think we should wait until we get invited to the party and they want to pay attention. It's just my feelings, because they've always treated Port Richey like somebody's redheaded stepchild.
And the trend that I see here is the people that have been to some of the MPO meetings, I think, kind of feel the same way for a reason. And the other thing that tends to happen is if there's a project, for example, in Zephyr Hills, even if Zephyr Hills may not agree or want that project, you have a bunch of other people pushing against them. And I would rather not have that pressure. I'd rather be able to sit here and make decisions based on what our residents say and what we say. So for all those reasons, I'm not suggesting we shouldn't participate, but I think the way we participate should maybe be in a different manner.
And maybe the other cities would go along with that same agreement of a month ahead of time for the agenda, because, I mean, Newport Richey, I believe, is very similar to us. I'm sure they would much appreciate having the benefit of a full council advisory to any sort of votes. It may be, it may be welcomed. If not, then, we can't function because you're not even making a simple accommodation for us.
That would be the ideal, is, for them to accommodate us so that we can contribute with value to the situation. Most of the time, if they're not going to even acknowledge our presence in the room, there's no value there.
And I appreciate the mayor and the vice mayor not wanting to make a decision without, all of our, it's in a bad position, almost a no-win position, because if he says something and the four of us disagree, then it's like, well, why did you do that? So,
That's how you deal with it.
yeah. And to me, they want participation. Well, fine. We'll give you participation. We'll give you the full council participation. You just have to make one simple accommodation.
Exactly.
I'm all right with that. I think that's the way it should be presented.
Because I went to a couple of the MPO meetings previously, and they don't care. They just go about their own business, doing their own thing, and then they're not at all concerned about how to be a president of the union.
So then I guess the question is for Thursday, we'll get back to that, is, like I said, I'm touch and go based on where I'm at with my scheduling. And that's the other issue. It's not like they call us and say, hey, what's a good date and time? They just, kind of sent, here you go, and you're either there or you're not.
Which is why we haven't been there in the past.
So the question becomes is whether or not anyone here wanted to volunteer to go. And I'll be there as well, probably just a little bit late. I was hoping that would be available. Okay.
This Thursday at 10?
I cannot commit to that. That's too short notice.
So I'll shift my calendar around and we'll see.
Yeah,
if we can make it.
let me get back. Let me see if I can move something, and then won't be right now, but.
Okay. So, anything else on that particular? That was, I guess, during my commentary. So, for the purposes of just scheduling, I'll be in touch with first up, Mr. or Vice Mayor Dittmer, because that's been historically who's attended, and then if he's not able to attend, then I'll then Mr. McCleary, I'll call you. So, in terms of, I'm still in comments from the mayor and council. One of the things that's happened in our city is we focused a lot of time and energy really to move forward in restoring our waterfront overlay district, which is a really, I think, fruitful and great project. But one of the things I don't want to get away from is our residents in our residential areas. And I think that we owe it to them to put together a little bit of a plan to spread some of the resources to help some different areas. So what I was proposing is a program coined either Share the Wealth type of thing. And what I'm getting at is I think that the city has different issues depending on which quadrant of the city you're at. The south side of the river has flooding issues and other issues, which we all have as well. And there's other issues within various parts of the city. And what I wanted to do is to see if we could put together around $100,000 a year, $25,000 kind of for each quadrant, for little projects, restriping the roads, painting curbs, fixing medians. There's some sidewalks that are beat up, and have that money set aside so we can kind of improve the areas where our residents and our citizens live, to just make where we all reside a little bit nicer of a place. And if we do that, one of the reasons I'm bringing it up here, and I'm not sure, is whether or not if we did something like that, or if you guys were interested in talking about that, if we could put that on either an agenda item here, or if it's going to be CRA, which would be an ideal use of CRA money really to spruce up our residential areas, clean those up. If we can put that as an agenda item on a CRA potentially, so we can discuss just a laundry list of little things that need to be done that I've noticed to the city, and kind of vote on whether we can set some money aside and leave some discretion to our city management to pick some of those projects and see if we can get them done. And I didn't know if anyone has an opposition to putting that on probably a CRA meeting at one of the upcoming meetings.
I think it's a great idea, but I also think we should do one better. Let's talk in the CRE meetings, talk about bigger projects. What's past the waterfront overlay district? I can think of a half a dozen projects throughout. At least let's start talking about it and getting on the table so we can get the little projects like you want, 100,000 a year, and spread it across. But what do we want to do for the rest of our city areas? What do we want to do for Grand? Sidewalks on Grand would be great. I see people literally going from bar to bar, walking in the middle of the road in some different states of...
In the dark.
In the dark, there's no lighting, there's no sidewalks. I'm waiting for someone to get hit or killed over there just because of the nature of it. That area is growing, I think, a lot faster than any of us really anticipated. Let's start putting some of these projects on the board, at least so we can have a priority list like this, hopefully a little faster than fiscal year 2025, but so we have the small projects and have the big projects as part of the CRA meeting.
And I agree that area needs to be addressed, but what I was focusing on is strictly residential. We have just residential areas where we literally have sidewalks like on Quist that are all beat up, discontinued. On the south side, there's some drainage. There's some drainage ditches that need to be cleaned out in preparation for as it starts to rain more, to prevent some of the flooding there. I saw in the Candlelight neighborhood there's an island right out in the middle, and the rocks are missing out of it. The concrete around the curbing's all beat up. The tree hasn't been trimmed in a while. And the bottom line is it wouldn't take a lot of money to fix some of these things up and just make them look real nice.
I agree. Put it on for projects under 5,000, under 25,000, and then projects over 25,000. And let's start talking about these and getting our residents' input in the CRA meetings. Because when we're here for CRA, no one's here because we really don't talk about anything for improvements for their areas other than the big stuff. Let's start talking about citywide improvements and get it on the agenda and start talking about these things. Because we have some money, not a lot, but we have some.
So,
I think it's an excellent idea to put something back into the city so that they know that we're actually doing something that they can see, and it's specifically for their particular area. We need to identify those projects and then include them in a conversation in the CRA. So how do
Well, I think that we reach out to citizens and see where they're at. I've spent a lot of time just driving around the city, so I have a nice laundry list of things that I've just seen that don't cost a lot of money that can be fixed. And it may solve some collateral issues. For example, we're talking about traffic problems. If you restripe the roads a certain way, and you can even put the little dividers that bump when you go, if you narrow them down a little bit, it'll slow traffic down. So there may be some collateral benefits to some of these things that we do as we spruce up some of these areas in the residential areas.
And to some degree, some of the things we talk about CRA may be transferred over to general funds from traffic, like you were saying. That's really not so much a CRA thing. That could be another area, another pot of money. But I'm sure we could all come literally to not this meeting, but the next meeting with a dozen items that would be nice to see and start putting together this list. It would probably make it a lot easier for Mr. Dute when he's talking with the state auditor, when they say, well, what do you talk about at your CRA meetings? And he has a whole laundry list of priorities and discussions and everything else of what we want to do to improve the community. I'm sure it makes a hell of a lot of easier conversation, not speaking for you.
Okay. So by consensus, are we good with that?
I agree.
We also have to know that we have the financial ability to do things that we've done.
That's why I brought it up now, because we're coming into budget season, so I wanted
Mr. Dute
to-
said he's got this.
We need something else.
So
That's why we're getting a grant writer.
So I've eaten up a lot of time now in my commentary, and I apologize for that. At this time, I'm going to pass it along, and I'll start with my right to Mr. Council.
One of the things I noticed, Bay Boulevard at US 19, the stop sign is like at a 45-degree angle. You could barely read stop. It looks like a vehicle hit it. We need to get that upright, and it's really a safety hazard. Also, about 8 feet to the southwest of that stop sign, there's some type of utility box that's been plowed over. It's terrible to look at. Obviously, it's not functioning because they would have fixed it, whoever the owner is. Could be cable, telephone, if they still exist. I don't know, but it's an eyesore that it's right on 19, if we could have that looked at. A second part, as June 1st, we entered the hurricane season again. How's the city doing preparing? Usually the first few months we don't sweat. It's the latter part of the season that we, what are we doing right now preparing, and what plans do we have in place, if any? Those are my concerns.
We know who that stop sign and that utility box platform belongs to, because 19 is not our responsibility on the whole. Is that theirs or is that ours?
I don't know, but we'll find out. If it's ours, we'll take care of it. If it's county or state, we'll let them know.
Yeah, the utility thing we probably can't touch.
But we can find out whose it
Yeah.
is and
Looked like
let 'em know.
it looked like a telecom. I have nothing.
Okay. Councilwoman Searle?
Hurricane preparedness was my issue for the month. Thank you for bringing it up. I would like to know what we've got as far as sandbags and what the possibilities are for something like that in the future, and our boat situation, if we have to evacuate people.
Well, I know we've got sandbags, and I'll look to staff if I misspeak or overspeak, but I know we've started the process of sandbags, getting them in place, making them available. Our boat situation, at least with the fire department boat, is good. Last time we tried to launch the police boat, it didn't go so well. FD also has the new vehicle that will handle high water much better. Our mutual aid agreement that I think you passed about a month ago is in place, and that allows both us to help others and others to help us. So those are all underway.
Well, I'm hoping that the county has done something about the drainage that goes into the trailer park that we have here on Ridge Road. That is the biggest thing. The last time we flooded over there, we needed small John boats just to get those people out. And I'm not sure where we got what we needed at the time, but that's something that's really imperative, because there's a lot of older people that live in that area that cannot get out on their own and couldn't walk that water. And fire ants love to float in that stuff in the bad time, and that's a nasty thing to run into when you're walking through floodwaters. So it would be nice to know that we have the John boats to get people out of these areas if they have a problem.
In my conversations with the park manager this morning, that was part of our pre-planning. She's actually been in contact with county and has taken the initiative to make some improvements in the drainage, in the pumping of the pond. And I'll admit my own lack of knowledge of exactly what she was talking about, but it was clear that she had already started some of her own efforts in that vein. Chief, can you talk to boats and availability?
I do. Well, we have 2 boats that are available, and we're going on the 16th to pick up a bigger boat to evaluate, but that would be for the Gulf. And I do know county-wise that there's 3 more John boats sitting at the station right here at Embassy that we work very well with and train with. So realistically, we have 1 to 5 boats that we can get into that park in a relatively fast time should we have a flash flood event.
That's wonderful, because that was the biggest problem. We also have to start asking the county where we're going to send these people when we take them out of their trailers or homes, because the homes will flood too.
I'll look into
Can we
that.
Put them in City Hall?
It's a great big tornado.
It's a big tornado.
With lots of rain.
You know what a hurricane is?
Wind and rain, a lot of it.
The difference between a hurricane and a tornado is you get no notice with a tornado.
Yes, ma'am.
A couple of weeks plan for a
And 100 miles of damage.
Yeah.
Vice Mayor Dittmer.
All right. Well, one was just a thank you for the trash cans at the hike and bike path. Appreciate that. I think that'll help. I noticed they were already being used, so that was a good sign. Also, the mangrove trimming out at Brasher Park looked really good. I don't know if anybody's gotten out there, but they've trimmed that all back, and it looks really nice out at the park. The other thing I'd like to bring back is I'd like to bring back or put on an agenda item to discuss charging for the ramp use in the future at Nix Park. We're not getting the help that we said we were going to get and the input from the county. So that's an expensive park. It's cost us a lot of money over the years, and I think we need to look at that. So I'd like to bring that back as an agenda item. And then I have one for the chief.
Before you move on, do you want to, yea or nay to putting that back on? We're just going to go around and make sure, because I think that.
Agenda item for the charging at Nix Park.
Yes.
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 I have no problem with it. It's the information before we have the meeting. I would like to have something,
That's what I'm asking
a
for.
concept
Mhm.
that we can actually put our teeth into. It just seems like every time we plan the next park fee structure or how we're going to handle that thing, we run into a lot of problems, like staffing for, staffing for the thing, monitoring it, and I'm not so sure that's something that we want to dump on our police department.
Maybe instead of the next meeting, we give them like a month to generate a
That's fine.
recommendation?
There should be plenty of material
Yeah.
available.
Well, we've discussed the kiosk aspect and all that kind of thing, and I know that there are some parks that function very well on something like that.
Electronic kiosk.
This is our traffic pattern over there in our parking situation makes the kiosk thing a little bit more difficult to apply. It can be done, I'm sure, but how do we go about doing that? And that's the information we need if we're going to actually talk about doing something.
This has come up quite a bit, so I'm sure you could probably get a lot of background.
Yep.
I will lean on staff.
And then the last item I had was actually for Chief Robinson. Is there noise level ordinances for noise coming from a vehicle?
A few years ago, that was something that we could enforce, but again, a few years ago, that was, you cannot anymore.
You cannot enforce that? Okay. Thank you. That's been the complaint from vehicles
we
coming out of
enforce it?
Avila Bay that it's ridiculously loud.
I think that closes out the comments from the board and committees. We're going to move on to the consent agenda for a motion.
Motion for consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 3 for council business was discussion of 4th of July fireworks celebration event. I would ask that we strike that, as I think we've already received some information.
Do we want to, before we strike it, do we want to have a conversation about possibly Labor Day or something of that nature for fireworks, where they become cheaper and more readily available? And
I wouldn't mind seeing something pushed off later, just as a late summer thing, or maybe.
yeah, maybe a celebration the end of summer.
So rather than strike it, we'll discuss it. One of the reasons I asked to have that put on is we're coming out of COVID, and it's my belief that we really need to start having community events here and function as a community. We're a small city on the water, and there's no reason that we shouldn't be able to come up with at least 1 or 2 different events a year that are city-sponsored or sanctioned.
Go back and look at the movies in the park thing that we started to do as well.
Yeah.
So, and that one, I think, was a lot more cost effective. But it would be nice to, I think the last contract we had for a fireworks vendor was around $9,000. And I don't think that our constituents or taxpayers would be opposed to paying for a fireworks display at some point. And then the question becomes, what point is that and what event? And I was going to open the floor to see how everyone felt about coming up with, if it's not the 4th of July, what we would want to celebrate where we would have a fireworks display.
Labor Day, my birthday, New Year's.
New Year's was what I was thinking too.
New Year's would be, we'd be able to plan it ahead of time right now, but like, Mr. Duke said, it's up 35%, and booking it would have to be done good, 6 months in advance.
So
we'd
it's
have
lining
to
up
be-
for New Year's.
We would have to have some kind of framework done before the end of this month, just to get our name in the hat, so that we can get something like that. New
And-
Year's would be the better thing to shoot for, because everybody loves fireworks.
And I agree. New Year's, the weather in Florida is very nice too.
You can sit outside.
Absolutely. So, and I think the venue should continue to be Waterfront Park as long as we're able to do that. So I think that's the appropriate venue. I think having a fireworks display is probably the way to go if we can do it. And then that also puts us in the next budget year, so we can budget for it. So for all those reasons, I like that idea. I didn't know.
And could we get the involvement of, let CAC help run with some of?
I was going to say, maybe get CAC involved and maybe make it a little bigger than just the fireworks. Maybe do an event at Waterfront Park to really kind of ring in the new year. I'm sure everyone's would be happy to see 2020/2021 go. Maybe something a little bigger, some kind of, I don't know, fair or whatever. Like, get vendors involved, and let's make it something a little bigger, something that's Port Richey that, not everyone does.
We've got time now.
Yeah, there's not plenty of time, but there's time.
A Pelican Festival.
Pelican Festival.
We also have to remember to take into consideration the restrictions that we have at the Waterfront Park regarding a lot of things.
Have we just been informed as 90 days, so we have plenty of time.
Yep.
City manager needs something else to do.
Serve at your pleasure, ma'am. What else? No,
He's not dodging tornadoes. He's got plenty of time now.
I'm good. New Year's, I think, is comfortable for us to get back with the fireworks vendors, obviously put a plan together for the state so that they can stamp it approved. And I'll engage CAC and put them to work, and we'll have a Pelican Festival.
Pelican New Year.
Somehow I got a feeling the Pelican's going to be the mascot because we can't get away from the Pelican.
So is that something we need to vote on, or can we just, by consensus, bring it to another council meeting once our city management has had time to kind of organize it?
I'll put stuff together for you.
Okay. Thank you.
The technical answer is he sets the agenda, so you're just making a recommendation.
Yes, sir. So that closes item 3. Item 4 is the approval of purchase of updated security camera system. I want to pass that to City Manager, Mr. Duke.
So our current security camera system is woefully outdated, virtually inoperable. And Chief Robinson and staff have put together a proposal to replace that. It's not cheap, and there were bids that were well beyond what we're asking for, but it's necessary. There's some enhancements to the system that need to be made. I know Chief Robinson has some cameras, some new locations that he needs operationally. And so replacing what we have, adding a couple of cameras for evidence room and making sure that the property is secure. It would all be monitored by dispatch and yes, sir.
cameras at the well site out there?
Yeah.
This time I'd like to open for discussion and/or motion.
Well, I have a couple questions about the camera system. Not that I'm an expert, but a lot of information's been out there about cybersecurity. And one of the angles that they're able to get through are security cameras, and they use that as an avenue to get into the server of the larger organization. I don't know the setup of this surveillance system, if it's independent, is it tied into anything within the city? That is my only concern is how it's set up. Are we tying this into the computer system within the city? And could this be a
Let me answer that. So, doing some research, this is going to be a closed loop system. So basically, they're going to be the security cameras will be tied into channels, which basically will be tied into the servers here at City Hall. So there won't be any type of, it won't be internet based or anything like that. They will still have that type of network. The only cameras that will have some sort of signal will be the ones that we're going to replace at some of the parks. Like we've got cameras set up at Waterfront Park and the Wellfield. We obviously can't hardwire them from their location to here, but still, once again, that signal is going to be sent to our servers here, which are also secured in a closed loop system. So, regardless, they can't hack. Even if they were to hack that particular camera, the only image they would get is like the image of the park. So that would be their only thing, but they can't get into the closed loop server system.
okay? That's comforting.
My question is, I guess we're replacing all the cameras throughout the city, all locations plus whatever is designated by, because the proposals, two of the proposals had for 17 cameras, and ironically, the cheaper proposal had for 18 cameras. So I'm assuming we're all good with the quantities and all that?
Yeah, actually, it's actually a lot more cameras than that. It's
okay.
yeah, it's 17 on one page, and then I think total. Yeah, so it's we're covering all the cameras here at City Hall. We're covering all the cameras at the water plant. In the back, we're covering the ones that we have set up at Waterfront Park and the Wellfield. So everywhere that we have a camera now, and I think a few more. The good thing about this is that it's also upgradable and continue to add more cameras if there's because of the type of upgraded system will be. So if we have a certain area or whatnot that we want to add a camera to, we can add it to the system and continue to upgrade it.
Well, I mean, this says 18 cameras, so there's more than that?
Here, give me a moment.
It says 17 cameras City Hall, 18 cameras in 6 remote locations.
Oh, yeah, but I'm looking at the lowest responsible bid. It says 18 5 megapixel, 3.6 millimeter fixed lens IP cameras with audio, blah, blah, blah. And then 18 installations.
Just give me one moment to pull up the agenda. That's not where- Thank you.
I mean, if it's what we need, that's fine. I just,
Can you go to that one? I can't see. Scroll down.
Nope, you can't stand and talk from the audience.
because we have 6 and 10 and 4 and 7, 17. Okay, my apologies, I misread it. Yeah, so you have like 20,
Yeah, it's
35 cameras. There we
it's
go.
actually
I apologize.
it's actually 35
Yeah,
cameras.
35
altogether.
cameras. Okay,
Because
makes a lot more sense. All right,
Well,
thank you.
they had to separate between what's going to be here at City Hall and what's going to be at the other locations.
Gotcha. I misread it. I apologize.
Looking for either a motion or any further discussion or questions.
Motion to buy shiny new cameras.
Before we go any further, any commentary from the general public? Nobody signed up. Seeing no hands, we have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Oh, any opposed? I didn't see your hand, I'm sorry, sir.
That's okay, I was just trying to clear up the proposal.
So we have all in favor, there were 5 ayes?
Aye.
Aye.
And then any nays? Motion passes. That closes out item 4 in council business. We're at old business now. Any old business to come before council at the time? Let's start with Vice Mayor Dimmer. Councilwoman Sorrell.
Any word on the Cote, the road closure down here? No update on that?
No, ma'am. I'll follow up on that.
That's all, thank you.
Nothing from my seat.
I don't have to ask about police cars anymore, so nothing.
Or fire trucks, right?
Or fire trucks. I get my own police car.
Yes.
I have nothing.
You get 2 fire trucks.
Looking for a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You guys, 5 minutes to allow city staff to reset over here. Yeah.